If you have ever stared at a vision board until the colors faded, whispered affirmations until your throat felt dry, sat perfectly still hoping the universe would finally notice your effort, only to watch another month slide by unchanged, then you already know the ache I am speaking to. There is something wrong in the way we were taught to manifest. Not because the principle is false, but because the method is slow by design. We were trained to become professional waiters. Repeat it longer, picture it clearer, journal it better, believe it harder, and someday reality will reward your patience. It sounds noble. It even sounds spiritual. But underneath the careful wording lies a single, corrosive assumption. What you desire is not here yet, and your job is to reach for it. That single assumption quietly programs your nervous system with distance. Every repetition tells your body, not yet. Every visualization paints a horizon you have to cross. Every hopeful sigh anchors you to the version of yourself who is still almost there. Time, obedient as ever, mirrors your signal and continues serving you the experience of waiting. Here is the reversal that breaks the spell. Manifestation is not a future process. It is a present collapse. Reality is not a conveyor belt that slowly delivers your order. It is a field that organizes around the frequency you stabilize now. The field does not read your sentences. It reads your coherence. It listens beneath your words to the broadcast of your state, the subtle electricity of your breath, the posture of your expectation, the emotion that hums between your ribs when you are not performing for anyone. If that hum is laced with longing, the field reflects longing. If it is heavy with effort, the world hands you more to push. And if it is steady, simple, unmistakably tuned to the version of you for whom this is already true, the field has no choice but to match you. Because in a quantum universe, selection outruns pursuit. Alignment outruns time. I am not asking you to try harder. I am inviting you to retire the identity of the one who tries. The slow path keeps you busy accumulating methods while quietly energizing absence. The fast path asks for a single, elegant shift. Stop energizing the distance and become the signal. This is not pretend. This is physics in human language. Electrons do not build a bridge from maybe to yes. They collapse into form under a dominant observation. In your life, observation is not staring at an image until your eyes water. Observation is the total state you inhabit. Your breath is an observation. Your tone is an observation. The emotion you return to when no one is watching is an observation. What you inhabit repeatedly becomes gravitational. It pulls a matching timeline out of superposition and into your Tuesday. If you felt something loosen while reading this, that is your system recognizing a home frequency it has always known, but rarely trusted. You do not need more rituals to convince reality. You need fewer contradictions inside your own field. The speed you are looking for is not on the calendar. Speed is a state of being, the clean simplicity of no longer vibrating as the one who waits. The moment identity shifts from becoming to being, patience stops feeling like virtue and starts revealing itself as delay. That does not mean you refuse process. It means process no longer sits between you and having. You no longer ask time to deliver what coherence can select. So let us begin where every shortcut begins, with honesty and precision. If your days are saturated with anxious checking, you are not manifesting. You are rehearsing lack. If your body braces while your mouth says it is coming, the field listens to the brace. If some part of you still believes that breakthroughs must be earned, you will unknowingly stabilize the version of you that keeps earning and never arriving. There is a gentler way. We will shift from technique to truth-telling, from effort to coherence, from chasing to selection. We will stop asking, how long will it take? And start asking the only question that bends reality with any speed. What is my signal right now? And will I allow it to become identical to the life I claim? If this resonates, if you can feel that subtle yes in your chest, Subscribe now so you do not miss the next chapter. We are about to turn this understanding into practice and stabilize a frequency your life can mirror immediately. One click and the next steps arrive the moment they drop. Because your timing should be as fast as your manifestation. What slows most people is not a lack of vision. It is the quiet superstition that time must be paid, like a tax, before anything real can change. They treat months as marathons and years as toll roads, believing that if they rehearse the future long enough, the future will finally agree to arrive. But the quantum does not invoice by the hour. It responds to one thing only: the sameness between your inner state and the reality you claim. When that sameness, call it coherence, congruence, alignment, becomes unmistakable, selection outruns chronology. It is not that clocks stop. It is that clocks no longer arbitrate what is possible for you. The field does not care how long you have wanted something. It mirrors how undivided you are right now. This is why two people can want the same outcome with equal sincerity and walk away with radically different timelines. One spends weeks tuning their mind while their body whispers doubt in 100 tiny ways. Tight breath, guarded posture, a voice that requests rather than declares. The other speaks less, but lives from a frequency that is already at home in the result. The first broadcasts effort. The second broadcasts inevitability. Physics is indifferent to eloquence. It obeys the stronger signal. Look carefully at how time sneaks into your practice disguised as virtue. You promise yourself that more repetition will make it real. And repetition does have value, until it becomes a ritual of delay. Every time you say, "one day," the body hears, "not yet." Every time you check for signs with a nervous urgency, you teach your nervous system that absence is the current truth and presence is a future event. The field does not argue. It agrees. This is the trap of becoming, the identity of the person who is always almost there. You can be diligent for a lifetime and never cross the invisible boundary between desire and selection if you keep energizing the distance. Coherence erases the boundary. It is the felt click when thought, feeling, and physiology stop debating and say the same thing at the same time. In that click, the story you tell and the atmosphere you carry finally match. The room hears it. So does reality. Imagine the way a tuning fork can set another fork vibrating without touching it. No pleading, no force, just resonance. Coherence works like that. When you stabilize the emotion of the chosen timeline, the body entrains to it, and then the environment begins to organize without argument. You have seen a crude version of this in reverse. Recall a fearful memory and your heart races instantly. Your stomach tightens instantly. Your muscles brace instantly. No committee meeting, no spreadsheet, no timeline. Just immediate coherence around a signal of threat. If the body can mobilize that fast for fear, it can mobilize just as fast for sufficiency, peace, clarity, gratitude, love. The speed is baked into your design. What changes is the signal you allow to dominate. Thought sets direction, yes. But emotion provides voltage, and the body transmits the broadcast. Without voltage and transmission, direction is only a line on a map you never drive. This is where many seekers get tangled. They try to think themselves into a new frequency, while their physiology is still tuned to the old one. They string together heroic affirmations while breathing like prey. They speak worthiness in sentences while wearing unworthiness in their shoulders, their walk, the tremor hidden at the end of their sentences. The field listens to the tremor. Coherence does not ask you to be theatrical. It asks you to be singular. Singular in breath, singular in tone, singular in the emotion that hums beneath your errands and your small talk and your commutes. You will know you are approaching singularity when the desire becomes quiet. Not because you gave up, but because wanting has been replaced by familiarity. The future stops glittering in the distance and starts feeling like a room you already live in. You are not coaxing reality to come over. You are making your home available to what matches. There is a humility in coherence that the ego finds inconvenient. You cannot bully the field with volume or charm. You cannot bribe it with hours logged. You surrender the theater of trying and take responsibility for the one domain that has always been yours: state. When your state is clean, reality organizes with an efficiency that looks like grace. Emails arrive before you craft the pitch. A sentence you needed to hear finds you in the checkout line. The person you could not reach becomes available without a calendar war. Outsiders will call it luck because they are measuring causes in miles and minutes. You will call it the obvious consequence of not splitting your signal. This does not mean passivity. Coherence loves movement. It simply refuses panic. You will still act, but action will feel like expression of what already is, rather than a campaign to get what is not. Notice too how coherence simplifies ethics. When you are no longer negotiating your value with outcomes, you stop performing. You tell the truth sooner. You decline what dilutes you without needing a villain. You stop courting intensity to feel alive and start choosing clarity to remain aligned. This matters because every deviation from clarity is a tax on your signal. Gossip is a tax. Hedging is a tax. Apologizing for your yes is a tax. Each small leak lowers the wattage of your broadcast and lengthens the timeline back toward linear speed. Seal one leak and rooms feel easier. Seal 3 and you will think the city changed its traffic lights in your favor. Coherence is not merely metaphysical, it is practical. Fewer detours, cleaner decisions, conversations that resolve in minutes instead of months. If you want a picture for your mind, retire the image of climbing a mountain toward your desire and replace it with standing at a console that selects stations. Mountains reward endurance. Consoles reward precision. You do not need to become stronger to reach the summit. You need to become clearer about what you are willing to let be true now. The console does not ask how long you have been turning the dial. It asks only whether you have tuned to a frequency without static. The moment the static ends, the song appears as if it had been playing all along, because it has. Your timeline is like that song. It does not need you to invent it. It needs you to stop broadcasting a competing station. Do not mistake this for magical thinking. Magical thinking hopes reality will bypass participation. Coherence invites you into the most intimate participation available, the authorship of your state. When doubt rises, you do not wrestle it. You widen the room until doubt is just another guest in a house ruled by quieter certainty. When impatience flares, you do not sprint. You return to the breath that tells your biology the result is friendly. When the old identity knocks with its favorite stories of almost, you do not host a reunion. You answer the door with the posture of someone who is moved. This is not denial. It is fidelity to the signal you have chosen as law. And here is the liberating secret. The field is far faster than your plans. It is on call in every second you are. The only time it seems slow is when you are sending alternating instructions. Now, not yet. Yes, but soon, someday. The moment you stop arguing with yourself, reality stops dragging its feet. The phone rings, the email lands, the conversation aligns, the body unwinds. You will be tempted to call it sudden. In a way, it is. Coherence does not accumulate gradually like sand. It crystallizes like ice when the water finally agrees on a temperature. The agreement is your work. The crystallization is its nature. So let this settle where calendars cannot reach. Time is not the bridge between you and what you claim. Time is the mirror that shows you, with perfect honesty, the state you have chosen to repeat. Change the repetition and the reflection changes. Not because the universe has been convinced, but because there was never anything to convince, only a frequency to stabilize. Hold there. Breathe like someone who trusts the floor. Speak like someone whose words do not need permission. Walk as if you have already arrived in yourself. When you do, you will watch a strange mercy at work. Life stops making you wait in lines you no longer stand in. Thought points the compass, but emotion supplies the electricity that moves the needle. This is why you can think beautifully about a future for years and watch it hover just out of reach, like a picture behind glass, and then experience a single moment of unmistakable feeling, gratitude that saturates the body, peace that loosens your jaw, love that warms the sternum, and the picture suddenly steps forward into your day. The field does not speak in sentences. It speaks in signals. And the most legible signal you broadcast is not the paragraph in your journal. It is the emotion your nervous system wears without thinking. If thought is a headline your mind publishes at will, emotion is the ink your whole being prints 24 hours a day. The field reads the ink. You already know this from the shadow side. Recall a painful memory with enough richness and your body obeys instantly. The heart rate climbs, the breath shallows, muscles organize for escape, as though the threat were in the room instead of your recollection. No one debates with the body about whether it should respond. It responds because the signal is coherent. If fear can recruit your chemistry in seconds, so can sufficiency. If dread can mobilize 1,000 micro-adjustments toward protection, so can trust mobilize 1,000 micro-permissions toward receiving. The speed was never the problem. The signal was. You were taught to manage thoughts while leaving your baseline emotion unexamined, hoping that clarity in the head could outrun a tremor in the chest. It cannot. The tremor wins because the field weights voltage over vocabulary. This is why strategies that live exclusively in the mind produce elegant theories and stubborn lives. You can script abundance at dawn and still broadcast scarcity by noon if your day is soaked in micro-flinches. Checking accounts with a braced breath, postponing generosity because you fear an invisible drought. Speaking about money in a tone that confesses dependence. You can visualize love with cinematic skill and still transmit abandonment if your posture collapses when intimacy approaches. If your voice tiptoes around needs, if your body prepares for departure at the first sign of closeness. The universe is not cruel in mirroring these patterns. It is precise. It returns what you stabilize, not what you perform for 15 focused minutes. Performance can be admirable. Stabilization is causal. So the question that accelerates everything is deceptively simple. What do you feel when you are not trying? That background weather is your real request. If the weather is worry, the field delivers reasons to worry. If the weather is effort, the field supplies more hills to climb. If the weather is quiet sufficiency, an inward enoughness that does not puff or shrink, the field organizes around that sufficiency with almost suspicious efficiency. Doors open not because you forced them, but because sufficiency has nothing to defend and therefore wastes no wattage. This is why the most magnetic people you meet are not manic in their positivity. They are steady. They hum, and the room tunes. Do not mistake this for an order to manufacture amusement on command. Joy is gorgeous, but it is volatile for many nervous systems trained by years of vigilance. Gratitude, relief, and peace are sturdier building materials. Gratitude does not deny lack, it simply refuses to let lack set the key. Relief is mercy made tactile. It unclenches the body's fist and lets intelligence return to the fingers. Peace is not the absence of motion. It is the absence of inner friction while moving. When these emotions become your resting key signature, you stop pleading with time. Things do not speed up because you shouted. They arrive because there is no static left to push through. Emotion is not a passive byproduct of circumstances. It is a generator you can learn to operate. The lever is small. The way you breathe when no one is grading you. The way you inhabit your chest when you speak. The cadence of your walk between obligations. The decision to let the exhale be longer than the inhale, until the body receives the memo that threat has clocked out. From there, the sentence you repeat gains credibility. I am resourced ceases to be a pep talk and becomes a report. The mind loves complexity, but the body is loyal to rhythm. Give it a rhythm of sufficiency and watch how rapidly your calendar, your emails, your coincidences begin to keep time with it. You have met people who manifest without language for any of this. They would not use words like coherence or collapse. They simply feel safe. Safe enough to ask plainly, to receive without apology, to say no without theater, to let delight occur without interrogating it to death. Their bodies do not argue with the good. That is all. Safety is the hidden fast track because it is the only state that does not split your broadcast. When you feel safe, desire becomes a selection rather than a plea. Decisions carry a tone that rooms obey, and opportunities can find you because you stopped hiding behind strain. Safety is not an opinion. It is a physiology that tells the field, it is already friendly here. The field responds in kind. This is also why urgency is the enemy of speed. Urgency is a frequency masquerading as commitment. It sounds like devotion, but it vibrates as lack. It says, if this does not happen now, I am not okay. And the field, ever faithful, reflects not okay in 100 creative ways, including almosts that keep you chasing. Replace urgency with immediacy. Immediacy is quiet. It does not chase, it chooses. It says, this is the reality I inhabit, and then inhales as if that sentence were already history. In that inhale, the body chooses a timeline, and reality, relieved to be given a clear order at last, collapses accordingly. But what of days when the old weather returns? When anxiety hums? When heaviness parks itself behind the ribs? When the past knocks carrying paperwork stamped overdue? Do not hold a trial. Hold a posture. Include the feeling without letting it pilot. Breathe until the shoulders drop a centimeter, until the jaw releases a notch, until the next sentence can emerge without tremor. That centimeter is not small. It is a change of station. The field notices that you did not abandon yourself to the weather, and that non-abandonment is itself a new broadcast. I can host discomfort without becoming it. Mirroring that dignity, life begins sending situations that respect your steadiness. The loop tightens. Steadiness breeds circumstances that reward steadiness, which deepens steadiness, which shortens timelines because fewer detours are required. There is tenderness in this work, and it is not incompatible with pace. You are not whipping yourself into ecstasy. You are apprenticing yourself to a quieter voltage that can be turned on everywhere. On a call, in a queue, between paragraphs, during the small silence before you answer a question that matters. Emotion is the carrier wave, yes, but it does not need to shout to carry far. It needs to be consistent enough that the field always knows which station you meant to play. Consistency is not dramatic, it is devotional. It is the decision to return to the feeling that matches your chosen world more often than you return to the feeling that matches your history. When this devotion takes root, something ordinary and holy happens. Desire loses its tremble. You stop asking when because when was a symptom of separation. You stop auditioning for outcomes because outcomes are now expressions, not permissions. The body recognizes home in its own house, and in that recognition, the present stops leaking power into a future that never arrives. You will call what follows sudden only once. The second and third time it happens, you will call it accurate. Emotion made the signal legible. The field read it at once, and time, with its usual politeness, stepped aside. Most people try to change their lives from the neck up, and then wonder why the world keeps answering to the body below the chin. The field is exquisitely literal. It does not respond to your finest theories. It responds to your broadcast. And the loudest, clearest transmitter you own is not your inner monologue, it is your nervous system. Breath rate, muscle tone, micro-expressions, gait, vocal timbre, the way your eyes settle or scan. These are not background details. They are the signal. When the body is broadcasting threat, your sentences about trust arrive garbled. When your posture whispers waiting, your vision of arrival gets cued behind 10 unseen doors. This is why you can speak worthiness and still move like permission is something to be earned. The field listens to the movement. It obeys what you embody. Embodiment is not pretending. It is not puffing yourself into a costume and hoping the universe mistakes it for truth. It is the choice to let the version of you that already lives in your chosen timeline take custody of your breath, your stance, your pace, your tone, right now, before evidence makes it easy. This is not delusion. It is instruction. A singer does not wait for applause to breathe from her diaphragm. She breathes that way because it supports the note she intends to hold. In the same manner, the life you are selecting requires a certain physiology, and you can host that physiology today. Open the chest the way someone does when the world is not a courtroom. Let the exhale be longer than the inhale until the body takes the hint that urgency has been relieved of duty. Place your attention behind the breastbone and notice warmth gather there like a low, dependable sun. These are not theatrics. They are settings on the console of your being. Change the settings and you change the station you are sending into the field. You have already watched embodiment work in reverse. Remember the last time dread visited uninvited. Your shoulders rose without consent, your belly braced, your breath climbed into your throat, your voice thinned by a half step. And suddenly the day began to organize around the assumption that something was wrong. Emails sounded sharper, faces looked less friendly, small delays felt like omens. And by nightfall, you had a tidy list of proof that your worry was warranted. That was not prophecy, it was physics. The body broadcast a frequency, and reality dutifully echoed it. Now invert the polarity. Let the body broadcast sufficiency, and watch how quickly the same echo chamber begins to serve your becoming. The cashier's kindness finds you. The sentence you needed lands from a friend who did not know you were listening. A door opens where a wall had been rehearsed. The world did not change its laws. It changed its response to your tone. The most compassionate correction you can offer yourself is to stop asking a frightened body to carry the choreography of abundance. Teach it the choreography first. If your system has been trained by years of vigilance, it will not believe joy on command, but it can believe relief. It can believe the feeling of a long exhale that does not end in a flinch. It can believe the weight of your feet remembering the floor. It can believe the posture of someone who is not on trial. Begin there and let relief mature into peace, and peace into quiet confidence. Confidence in this sense is not volume. It is absence of wobble. It is the way a sentence lands when you are no longer placing your worth on the verdict. From that steadiness, instructions carry farther with fewer words, because the field does not have to root around your doubt. Language matters because it moves through the body before it reaches the world. Notice what your voice does when you make requests you do not expect to be honored. The final syllable lifts as though begging the sentence to be rescued. The throat tightens. The breath rushes to fill the silence you fear. That entire performance is a broadcast of almost, and the field mirrors almost with 1,000 polite deferrals. Now speak the same request from a chest that is already warm, from a jaw that is not clamped, from an exhale that finishes without rush, and observe how the atmosphere leans toward you. People call this charisma or timing. It is simply embodiment removing static from your message until reality can hear what you actually said. The nervous system also remembers the places where you abandoned yourself to stay approved. So do not be surprised if coherence feels unsafe at first. Safety has been misfiled in your body as hypercompliance, speed, and smallness. When you slow your speech enough to let your meaning arrive, when you occupy your full height without apology, when you hold eye contact as though you had nothing to hide, those are not vanity. They are repatternings. Old alarms may ring. Let them ring while you remain. You are not ignoring the alarm. You are teaching the house a new fire code. This is how timelines stabilize. By walking through the same rooms with a different temperature until the rooms admit the season has changed. There is a quiet ethics to embodiment that linear models often miss. When you inhabit sufficiency, you stop taking from others what you refuse to give yourself. You negotiate without theater. You decline without insult. You You stop dressing desperation as devotion and calling it hustle. Embodiment cleans the motives behind your action because you are no longer trying to purchase a feeling with results. You are letting results arise from a feeling you already host. This spares you the whiplash of achievement that does not stick, the high that collapses by evening, the success that feels like a costume you cannot wear at home. What remains is the simplest luxury: behaving in public exactly as you are in private, which is another way of saying your signal no longer splits under scrutiny. On days when old reflexes reclaim the wheel, do not escalate. Return to the smallest lever you can find. Let the next 3 breaths be honest. Put your hand where your courage lives and keep it there until your palm grows warm. Stand up and let your spine remember it is a mast, not a question mark. Walk from room to room, a little slower than the fear demands and a little quicker than the apathy prefers, and call that pace mine. You are not fixing yourself. You are choosing your broadcast in 1,000 quiet inches. Those inches compound. Rooms that used to take hours to recover now ask for minutes. Conversations that spun into litigation close with a single clear sentence. Opportunities that once required staircases arrive by elevator because you stopped performing stairs for a universe that was prepared to meet you at level. Eventually, the strangest mercy arrives. You forget the last day you tried to manifest. You are too busy living as the person for whom this reality is ordinary. This is not arrogance. It is compatibility. The body has learned the grammar of the timeline you selected, and grammar, once learned, does not require translation to speak. You catch yourself laughing at how obvious it feels, and then catch yourself again, because obvious does not mean unholy. It means the sacred has finally stopped hiding from you in the future. It is here, in your breath, in your bones, in the way your footsteps sound like someone who knows the ground. And from that ground, the next choices present themselves without ceremony. You say yes where your yes belongs, no where your no protects what is tender. Rest when rest would multiply your clarity, and act when action is simply the body's way of honoring what your state already made true. There is a moment when striving becomes so familiar that you mistake it for identity. You wake, and the first sensation is motion, leaning forward into a day you must assemble, into outcomes you must coax, into a future that will supposedly reward your choreography if you can keep the beat. But the quantum field does not reward choreography. It recognizes resonance, and resonance introduces a different geometry to creation. Instead of pushing toward what you want as if the future were a distant hill to climb, you allow the version of you that already lives there to become gravitational. You stop marching and feel something subtle but unmistakable begin to pull. This is not fantasy. It is the sensation of coherence gaining mass. When your inner atmosphere matches a specific timeline cleanly enough, that timeline moves from polite possibility to active magnet. You are not hauling it across months. You are consenting to be carried across moments by a current that was always running beneath the noise. The pull begins in quiet rooms where you would normally reach for tactics. You notice that when you stop filling space with how, a different intelligence rises without fanfare. It selects for you. It removes options you were only considering out of habit. It edits your calendar with a kind precision, placing you where your yes will be met instead of where your insecurity goes to audition. This is not passivity. It is participation at the level of state. Your job is no longer to outwork uncertainty. Your job is to hold a frequency so consistent that uncertainty has nowhere to live. From there, movement is simple. You answer an email that would have been buried under strategies. You decline a meeting that once felt too expensive to refuse. You walk to a cafe you never visit, and someone you needed to meet is sitting in the third chair from the window as if the seat had been reserved by your coherence. Outsiders call it coincidence. You call it the obvious behavior of a field that has finally been given a clear instruction. Letting the future pull you requires a virtue that hustle rarely practices: stillness without vacancy. Not the slackness of avoidance, but the alert rest of a musician who has tuned their instrument and is listening for the downbeat that only they can hear. In this stillness, your nervous system is not idle. It is broadcasting the signature of already. The breath lengthens, not as a technique, but as a consequence of no longer needing to negotiate. The eyes soften because there is nothing to hunt. The posture occupies its full height without performance because there is nothing left to prove to a room that is already friendly. From this physiology, decisions start arriving with a feeling of inevitability instead of risk. You may feel compelled to discontinue something that once signaled success. You may feel a clean yes to something that will confuse the part of you addicted to linear plots. The mind will ask for guarantees. The body, if you listen, will answer with a steadiness that does not require prophecy, only obedience. The paradox of acceleration is that the less you push, the faster you travel. Pushing floods your system with signals of not yet. Every strained step shouts to the field that the desired reality lives far away and must be wrestled into reach. Pull cancels distance. It declares, this is native, and the field, ever precise, rearranges paths so that native can find you. Sometimes that looks like a dramatic turn. Often it looks like tiny edits in tone and timing that compound into doors opening exactly when you arrive. You begin to notice that the route is shorter, not because roads moved, but because detours you used to take out of fear were never chosen. The silence that used to feel like failure becomes navigational. In that silence, you can finally hear the difference between the old identity rehearsing an argument for its survival and the new identity inviting you into a room where arguments are irrelevant. There is a humility to being pulled, and humility is not smallness. It is transparency. You concede that the you who was always fixing did not have the instruments to conduct this symphony, and you hand the baton to the version who does. That version breathes differently. They do not run to catch opportunities. Opportunities arrive at their walking pace, because the signal they carry tells the world there is no scarcity of them. They do not sprinkle apologies over clear sentences. They do not decorate boundaries with essays. They do not monetize every gift to justify its existence. They move as if life had already said yes. And because the field mirrors the dominant frequency, life keeps saying yes in the only language it has, circumstance. The pull will ask you to retire one last addiction. The need to feel excited in order to trust. Excitement can be wonderful, but as a compass, it is erratic. The frequency of inevitability is quieter. It feels like the exhale that lands after a long season of bracing. It feels like returning your shoulders to their rightful address. It sounds like a sentence that does not wobble at the end. At first, you may mistake this calm for the absence of momentum. Pay attention. The days will begin to stitch themselves with unforced symmetry. The right names will surface without hunting. The message you needed will arrive by routes you could not have mapped. This is not because you learned a trick. It is because you stopped emitting static long enough for the broadcast to travel without distortion. What if the future you keep trying to achieve has been circling you this whole time like a patient satellite? Waiting for the moment your signal becomes lockable. Reverse manifesting is simply that lock. You stop declaring yourself the one who is almost ready. You stop warming your hands on the small fire of someday. You sit in the chair that matches your name and let the room adjust to you. From there, action is not a campaign. It is compliance with the pull. You send the message because your chest warmed when the name crossed your mind. You leave the event early because your body told you the conversation you came for had already happened. You spend the money that preserves your integrity and watch, with a mixture of awe and relief, as the field returns it with interest, because integrity is an amplifier, and the field is faithful to amplification. There will be days when the old gears grind, when the reflex to push returns dressed as responsibility. On those days, do not condemn yourself. Refuse to co-sign the panic. Pause long enough to let your breath remind your cells which decade they are in. Invite the feeling of already to sit beside the feeling of not yet, and let them both be present without electing the latter as pilot. The pull does not vanish because you felt human for an hour. It waits, as steady as gravity, for the moment you release resistance again. And when you do, the current is still there, ready to carry you the next few feet, then the next few doors, then the next few miles, until one day you look up and realize you no longer recognize the landscape of striving. You recognize something gentler and more accurate. A life that behaves like an answer to a question you finally phrased clearly. In that recognition, gratitude stops being a practice and becomes the natural climate of your hours. You are not grateful because a fragile luck might end. You are grateful because you live inside a fidelity you can trust. The field did not become kinder. You became coherent. The future did not run toward you. You stopped running away from it by broadcasting mismatch. Being pulled is not laziness. It is mastery. It is a quiet partnership between your most honest state and a universe that has always been listening with perfect, immediate precision. From here, the next evolution is simple. Keep the signal clean, keep the pace human, and keep letting the future do what it has wanted to do since you first named it. Pull you home. No one can schedule it. There is no calendar alert for inevitability. The collapse moment arrives the way dawn arrives, not by permission, but by accumulation. Light agreeing with itself until darkness has nowhere left to stand. For weeks, maybe months, you kept returning to coherence without fanfare. You breathed a little longer than the fear wanted. You spoke a little cleaner than your past approved. You let your body practice the posture of already, even on days when the mind argued for not yet. Nothing looked cinematic from the outside. You were simply faithful in small, precise ways. And then, on an ordinary morning, you notice the strangest quiet where longing used to live. The desire you have carried like a bright ache is not buzzing anymore. Not because you gave up, but because the frequency has settled. The wanting has dissolved into familiarity. The future no longer glitters in the distance. It looks around the room as if it has always been here. That is the first sign you are standing on the lip of collapse. The wave is deciding to become the world. The mind will try to reverse engineer it. It will ask whether it was the 10th breath or the 12th message, or the way you finally said no without a footnote that tipped the scale. It wants a lever it can label. But collapse is not earned by arithmetic. It is catalyzed by the end of contradiction. When your body, emotion, and awareness stop sending mixed instructions now and later, yes and maybe, trust and audit. The field, which was never withholding, organizes without delay. The reordering can appear flamboyant, as if reality were trying to make a point in neon. A call from the name you could not reach for months. A yes from a gatekeeper who had perfected the word no. A payment landing hours after you replaced scarcity with a boundary. An apartment opening on the street you journaled about in private. More often, it appears with the subtle precision of a lock, turning in a door you have touched 100 times. You are halfway through a sentence when you realize the meeting is already over in the best way. The room has agreed. You reach for your old explanation and discover you no longer need to argue. You walk into a space that once made you shrink and find your posture unbothered, as if your spine has been waiting for this address. Collapse is not a thunderclap. It is the quiet relief of a reality catching up to a signal that finally stopped wavering. What shocks most people is the speed. For years, change looked like a staircase, each step a negotiation with gravity. Then coherence builds its quiet pressure, and the same staircase behaves like an escalator, moving under your feet the moment you stand in the right place without fidgeting. It feels sudden because linear time is poor at measuring what happens when contradiction ends. If you pour water at 31 degrees into a tray, it looks like water. At 32, it still looks like water. At 33, nothing obvious announces progress. But at 32 degrees Fahrenheit from the other side, a crystalline decision is waiting. One more breath of coherence, and the whole tray agrees at once. That is collapse, not reward. Agreement. Identity choosing one temperature consistently enough that matter has no argument left. When collapse arrives, you may notice a disorienting mercy. The compulsion to monitor vanishes. You do not refresh the inbox 10 times an hour. You do not eavesdrop on outcomes. You do not ask life to prove itself every afternoon. Not because you decided to be stoic, but because the need to self-surveil was a symptom of separation. And separation has been retired from this conversation. What replaces it is not apathy. It is participation of a different order. You are busy, but not busy proving. You are in motion, but not in penance. You answer doors that knock with your name and do not chase doors that belong to other houses. The day feels choreographed by a friend. You keep pace without rushing, and when you rest, it is because rest multiplies the clarity that built this timeline, not because exhaustion finally demanded tribute. If a residue of your old identity tries to declare this luck, let gratitude answer without diminishing your authorship. You did not summon a miracle by flattering the cosmos. You stopped emitting static and the broadcast traveled. You kept choosing an interior weather that matched the world you named, long enough for the world to have no other option but to match you back. Even so, humility is the right proportion here. Collapses do not crown you. They recalibrate you. They end one form of hunger and introduce a more honest appetite, not for more proof, but for more stewardship. The moment something you selected becomes tangible, you inherit the responsibility of living it cleanly. The relationship you called in will ask you to speak with the same coherence that called it. The money you selected will ask you to circulate it with the same clarity that magnetized it. The platform that appeared will ask you to use your voice with the same precision that opened the door. Collapse is an invitation to consistency, not an excuse to retire attention. You will also discover that collapse reorganizes more than circumstances. It edits your self-concept in real time. The version of you that was fluent in almost begins to lose vocabulary. Sarcasm about the future stops being funny in your mouth. Rooms where you used to audition for belonging feel too small to host your exactness. This is not arrogance. It is compatibility asserting its right to choose context. When compatibility becomes your ethic, you do not villainize places that cannot meet you. You exit without drama and enter rooms that can. The field, which never stopped listening, treats these entries and exits as declarations and hastens to supply matching cast, matching conversations, matching work. The old life may attempt a reunion tour. Former patterns will text at midnight. Familiar detours will glitter with a nostalgia that whispers, just one night, just one more smallness. Smile and keep walking. Collapse is a delicate newborn for a while. Guard it with ordinary decisions repeated until your nervous system knows this is home. There will be tests, but they are not cosmic hazing. They are measurements of whether the signal holds under new weights. Does your breath stay slow when the number of zeros increases? Does your voice stay honest when praise arrives with strings? Does your posture remain unhurried when opportunity knocks twice in one afternoon? Each yes is not graded by a stern universe. Each yes is another inch of foundation poured under the structure you asked for. If a no slips out, if you wobble, if you agree to something that dilutes you, if you speed up because attention makes you nervous, do not turn wobble into prophecy. Return. The architecture of collapse is forgiving because it is built from state, and state can be recalled faster than any repair the mind can diagram. The most beautiful feature of the collapse moment is how it normalizes wonder without trivializing it. The first time alignment shows up in your inbox with impossible timing, you will whisper, "How?" as if the room might answer. The fifth time, you will whisper, "Of course," not from entitlement, but from literacy. You are learning the language of a field that never spoke English to begin with. It spoke coherence. It spoke congruence. It spoke the humility of being what you ask for while you ask. And now it is speaking back in its favorite syntax. Symmetry that would be hard to script. Mercies that do not waste motion. clarity that lands before you have time to doubt it into vagueness. You are not the author of the field. You are its collaborator. Collaborators do not clap for every line. They keep writing. One last tenderness here. Sometimes collapse looks like a door closing with unusual finality. The job ends in a single conversation, but the relief in your sternum arrives before fear can argue. The friendship completes its work with a kindness that confuses your habit of dragging good things past their season, and you feel older and lighter in the same hour. The plan you rehearsed with exquisite diligence does not survive first contact with a larger invitation, and somehow you are grateful as you watch it burn. Do not misread these endings as regressions. When a timeline collapses into a higher coherence, everything out of tune makes a graceful exit if you let it. What remains is not an emptiness. It is a vacuum shaped like your next exact yes. Fill it without apology. In the end, the collapse moment is simply the truth telling itself out loud through your life. You trained your state to stop contradicting itself. You let the body memorize a piece that did not depend on evidence. You chose emotions sturdy enough to carry signal through traffic and emails and rooms with fluorescent lights. You spoke sentences that were shorter because they were truer. You sealed leaks that used to drain wattage from your presence. And the field, which had been waiting with unreasonable patience, responded the way it always responds when given a clear instruction, instantly, precisely, without theatrics. From here, the assignment shifts in only one way. Keep the signal clean. Keep the gratitude grounded in behavior, not performance. Keep living as if the sacred had never been far, because it was never far. It was only asking for a frequency it could find. Arrival is thrilling. Stewardship is holy. The moment a reality collapses into form, the mind wants to celebrate by relaxing the very consistency that invited it. This is why some breakthroughs flash and fade. The signal that summoned them scatters under the weight of novelty, praise, opportunity, and old reflexes returning in a fresh costume. Integration is the art of refusing amnesia. It is how you protect a newborn frequency until it can stand on its own legs and walk your life forward. This is not about living under surveillance. It is about living under alignment. You do not clamp down, you hold true. You do not police yourself, you parent your signal, firmly, kindly, and without outsourcing the job to the mood of a day. The first task of integration is remembering that the cause did not change because the circumstances did. The cause was your state. The money, the relationship, the platform, the healing. These are fruits, not roots. If you mistake fruit for root, you will start watering outcomes and neglecting the soil. Keep watering coherence. Keep giving the body the same instructions that carried you here. Breath that speaks of safety. Posture that broadcasts sufficiency. A voice that lands without wobble. The environment will tempt you to sprint, but the field still reads the same language it always has. It does not care how many meetings are on your calendar. It cares whether your frequency is singular while you attend them. The schedule can be full and the signal clean. It can also be empty and the signal fractured. Integration is choosing the former on purpose. Ethics begins where scarcity ends. When you no longer need results to validate your worth, you stop bending truth to buy belonging. You stop agreeing to diluted arrangements because you fear a better fit will not arrive. You stop dressing panic as urgency and calling it leadership. Integrity simplifies everything after a collapse because now the stakes have changed. You are not trying to get in the door. You are choosing which doors your presence will honor. That choice is never an attack. It is a statement of compatibility. You can bless what is not yours and still refuse to carry it. You can love people fiercely and still decline dynamics that ask you to shrink. Your no stops sounding like an exit wound and starts sounding like a doorway to the right rooms. This is why post-collapse boundaries are not walls. They are tuning tools. They keep the music true. Consistency always outruns intensity. The culture will try to recruit your miracle into spectacle. Announce it everywhere, expand at once, double production, triple output. Capitalize before the window closes. But quantum windows do not close on coherence. They close on contradiction. Protect the pace that preserves your singleness of signal. If your nervous system remains unhurried, scale can be graceful. If it wobbles, scale amplifies the wobble. The loving answer is to expand only at the rate you can remain yourself. Growth that erases your ground is not growth. It is expensive forgetting. Let your days develop a gentle ritual of return. Tiny moments where you come back to I am without adjectives. Let breath lengthen by a measure. Let the chest warm by a degree. And check the broadcast before you speak a yes that spends tomorrow's clarity. This is not asceticism. It is architecture. Service becomes clean in this season. Before collapse, service can be a strategy to earn access. After collapse, it matures into overflow. You give because you are resourced, not to become resourced. You teach from embodiment, not from theory. You help without taking on what is not yours. The people you once tried to rescue now meet your presence and feel respected by the boundaries that allow them to keep their dignity and their lessons. You discover that the most generous thing you can offer many rooms is your steadiness rather than your solutions. Steadiness calms the collective nervous system and makes space for intelligence to rise that is bigger than any single mind. This is how timelines compound. Coherence is contagious. Your life becomes a tuning fork that other lives begin to hum with, not because you insist, but because resonance is more persuasive than rhetoric. You will notice integration rewriting your relationship with attention. Praise and criticism begin to lose their old leverage. Compliments are received without needing to metabolize them into identity. They pass through like sunlight, warm, welcomed, not required for photosynthesis. Critiques are evaluated for precision, not for permission to exist. If there is truth, it is integrated without drama. If there is projection, it is released without ceremony. This neutrality is not numbness. It is sovereignty. It is the end of bargaining your state with the weather of opinion. And it is ethical, because a self that is not at the mercy of storms is safer to stand near. You do not bleed your swings into the room. You carry your weather responsibly. Integration also asks you to clean the small places where you used to leak. Leaks often hide in politeness. You say yes when you mean maybe. You ask questions you already know the answer to because just checking feels safer than declaring. You soften your voice at the end of true sentences and watch the world treat your clarity like a suggestion. Seal these places gently. Say what is accurate and let the period land. Give timelines you can honor without rushing your nervous system into fraud. Move the money that is meant to move and keep what is meant to stay without apologizing to ghosts. Each sealed leak raises the wattage of your presence. Rooms rearrange around someone whose signal does not perforate itself. Stewardship of environment is not vanity. It is maintenance of broadcast. You are sensitive equipment. The media you ingest, the rooms you frequent, the conversations you indulge. These are not neutral. They tune you. You do not have to become precious to become precise. If a song splits your focus, turn it off. If a thread pulls you into righteous fatigue, unfollow it. If a recurring call siphons your steadiness, change its cadence or end it with love. Not because you are fragile, but because your frequency is valuable, and valuable things are stored carefully. Precision is not control. It is devotion to remain who you promised yourself you would be when the opportunity finally met you. On the days when old patterns ambush you, because they will, choose repair over regret. Regret is a theater that exhausts and changes nothing. Repair is a sentence, a breath, a decision. You spoke from fear. Call back and speak from center. You spent to soothe. Balance the ledger with a choice that honors your signal rather than punishing yourself with scarcity. You overcommitted? Renegotiate before your body pays the price. The field is not punitive. It is responsive. It will mirror your repair as faithfully as it mirrored your wobble. This is how trust deepens, not by performing perfection, but by witnessing your own reliability in motion. As your timeline stabilizes, generosity will look increasingly like clarity. You will tell the truth sooner, to yourself first. You will end things at their natural ending and begin things at their natural beginning without pouring concrete over ambivalence. You will give credit freely because contribution multiplies in rooms that celebrate it. You will stop hoarding opportunities because your life has moved from hunting to harvest, and harvest feeds villages. Notice how this ethic dissolves competition. When you are broadcasting inevitability, someone else's win does not threaten your field. It confirms its rules. You can applaud loudly and still receive on time. Let gratitude remain practical. Gratitude that floats never lands. Let it enter your muscles. The unhurried breakfast you used to skip, the walk you refuse to earn, the call you answer with full attention because presence is the currency you promise to spend more freely. Gratitude that touches behavior becomes memory in the body, and the body that remembers is the best insurance against drift. This is the quiet genius of integration. It turns miracles into maintenance. It turns exception into baseline. It turns the extraordinary into your ordinary without letting it become invisible. Finally, hold tenderness for the self that got you here. The one who waited, rehearsed, overcorrected, tried too hard. Do not exile them from the house now that the rooms are bright. Thank them and retire them with honor. Their strategies were born to survive a season. You are not in that season now. You are in the one where reality behaves like a partner who keeps showing up because you keep showing up as yourself. Keep the signal clean. Keep the ethics simple. Keep the pace human. And if you ever wonder whether the timeline is holding, listen for the most reliable sign, the sound of your own breath moving through a body that trusts the moment it is in. From there, the conclusion writes itself. A life that no longer waits for speed because speed has become the way you are. Manifestation was never a marathon through time. It is a present collapse that mirrors the frequency you stabilize now. When breath, posture, feeling, and choice agree on already, the field answers with precision, fast, clean, exact. You do not need more rituals, you need fewer contradictions. Tune your state, seal the leaks, hedging, rushing, self-doubt, and let gratitude, relief, and quiet confidence become your baseline. From there, action is no longer a chase. It is expression. Results stop arriving someday and begin arriving on schedule, your schedule, because coherence outruns time. If this clicked for you, and you want the next chapters the moment they drop, subscribe now. One tap ensures you keep practicing with us, turning coherence into your everyday atmosphere, at work, at home, in every room you enter. Thank you for being here, for your attention, and for your courage to live as what you've chosen. Until next time, breathe, tune, and let life match you.